Good morning, everyone. I'm here to moderate what is the fourth track for FLEXCON. And today we're going to have several presentations on industrial and commercial flexibility. I have to say that today's webinar is going to be recorded, and afterwards the presentations will be available. Also, if you want to have any question, please go ahead and do so on the GoToWebinar dashboard. And with that, I would like to introduce myself. I am Alicia Carrasco. I'm the CEO of the energy strategy consulting company Aldel Energy. We try to bring opportunities that are coming from regulatory change and innovation that is pushed from the European Union to different countries and member states. And I'm also the executive director of ENTRA, the Aggregation and Flexibility Association in Spain. So when we are looking at industrial and commercial, we have to see that countries like Spain, we are now opening the balancing services as part of the Nebo Code electricity balancing guideline implementation in Spain, and afterwards the implementation of the internal market directive. We are seeing that it's always commercial and industrials, mostly industrials, the ones that are have more interest to initiate participating in the market. And with that, I won't take any time from the panelists and the speakers today. So we're gonna start with a pool and try to understand where are you coming from. And we're gonna have a pool with a set of questions. And this question is, who does describe you the best? I think the pool is not ready. Yes, so we are ready with the pool. So the question for the pool and you to answer is, what describes you the best? Is your focus on aggregator or markets? Is the option B, my focus is energy generation, distribution, TSO and DSO. Is my focus at smart technology? Option D, is my focus e-mobility and vehicle to grid? Otherwise, whether it's other, the focus you have and represent you here today. So if you want to reply to this question, it will give us a better idea of who is listening to today's webinar. So we do see that most of the people represented today, their focus or your focus is aggregators or markets, followed by generation, energy generation, distribution, and TSO. So with the smart technology third on the line, we continue with the panelists and with the speakers. So our first presentation is going to be a presentation that is going to talk about enabling new flexibility, and it will be presented with the Aldel and Energy Food Partnership that they will explain through their presentation. So to do an introduction of the speakers, we have with us today Chris McNamee. He's the CEO of Damco Aluminium, which is a company that trade and work around aluminium. And then we're also going to have two speakers from Energy Pool. Emmanuel, he's the Executive Vice President for Business and International at Energy Pool. He's been more than 20 years working on several sites for technical and industrial companies. And now, for the last 3 years, he's focusing on boosting the benefits of flexibility for industries in Europe. He will be also together with Edouard Perroy of Energy Pool. He's the Head of Innovation at Energy Pool. And he's been working since 2011 in Energy Pool, so he has a very wide experience on what is to focus on industrial consumers. And now he's focusing on a program where they support a collaborative model with industry. And I think the presentation they're going to do today will explain much further what they mean with this collaborative initiative. So with that, I introduce you to the first presentation that will talk on Aldel and the Energy Pool partnership. So if you want to start, thank you.
Thank you, Olivia, and pleased to be on board all along with you. Thanks for the introduction. We will, along with Chris McNamee, the CEO of Aldel, and Edouard, introduce you about our partnership. Maybe just to give you a brief idea about Energy Pool. So Energy Pool is, for the last 10 years, dedicated to flexibility all across the world. I won't give you so much of details, but we are present in some different countries all across the world. And the main key point of Energy Pool is that we have a strong DNA with industrial and especially electro-intensive industrial plant. And that's the reason why for the last 10 years, we serve both the grid concerns and large industrial plants for which electricity and energy, for sure, in terms of supply or consumption, are key. We play an important role towards energy transition, and this again on both sides for grid and for industrial plants. We support industrial plants to act as a partner for the power system, playing role in stabilization of the grid, but also allowing renewable integration and self-consumption, self-production. This is what we call the smart energy manager of complex system, and this is the way we used to support Chris McNamee and his team to go and to move forward in these green concerns, even from heavy industry plants like Aldel.
Good morning. My name is Chris McNamee. As previously mentioned, I'm the CEO of Damco Aldel. We are a primary aluminium producer in the north of the Netherlands. And we produce about 160,000 tons of primary aluminium. And as you probably all know, aluminium is a very large consumer of energy. We consume between 150 and 200 megawatts, I should say, of energy per hour with our plant running at full capacity. And the work that we are doing with Energy Pool, we view as sort of very central to our future. Aluminium, I think, is sort of considered to be a bit of an old-fashioned industry. And we're not quite sure that that's a fair. We know that's not a fair representation of our business, and we are, I guess, repositioning our plant and working on our processes to make it more greener and bring it into the 21st century. A cornerstone of that is the flexibility projects that we're working on. Which we think can really bring a substantial revenue stream to the business, and we also think is critical, I guess, to our social license to operate. These plants were typically built to help stabilize the grid under the old days with sort of fossil fuel plants. Now we are repurposing it to be able to assist in the energy transition, which is going on, in the EU, to help provide stability now to the intermittent sources of wind and solar, which are becoming much more prevalent. So we think that this is the sort of the future. It's I think an interesting strategy in the sense that we are actually looking at how we adjust our production process as opposed to just trying to use greener energy. So this slide that's up here is, I guess, is part of our broader green strategy for producing, I guess, lower carbon aluminium. Sorry, is there? Seem to have moved forward. So yeah, so the strategy, the big part, our largest input cost is energy, And so this is, so most of our time and effort is spent on ways with which we can improve our energy efficiency. We are also investing in wind and solar parks nearby, again increasing our consumption of green energy. Sorry.
Okay, so Alicia, please. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I missed to ask you for the questions for the pool. So we will go on the results after this presentation, and there will be another pool in between some of the presentations. So keep all the audience following the data with the questions during the presentation. Thank you.
So yes, basically on energy pool side, we do have a leitmotif with that usual. Well, we should altogether invest in flexibilization, and we do think that this investment in flexibilization is a proper way to have a combined approach, mixing two big constraints that we are facing on different plants, industrial plants. The first one is indeed, as you probably all know, is that energy markets currently, especially in Europe, become more and more complex and volatile. So we, on the different DR products, we do have some auctioning reduction of the time. So FCI is currently 4 hours. The MFR in the Netherlands is now one day daily auction. So everything is becoming more volatile and a multi-layer of different DR products. So this is one of the first constraint that we see, that flexibilization is useful to respond to this constraint. Then, as Chris just mentioned, you also have on a plant like Aldel, like sustainability objectives in terms of green future. So because of regulation, or also because of markets, and because we do think that it's a competitive strategy to go ahead on those sustainability objectives. And again, the investing on new flexibilization is also, well, the opportunity to get more revenues from the different products, and to actually create a specific resilience on the market. And also, well, with those revenues is to modernize the installation, and this is the case with Damqual. Well, those revenues will be useful to renew some equipment in order to be more efficient on the market and on the energy sector. And also for the sustainability objectives, I mean, it's a good way. Flexibilization is a very good way to go ahead with the energy transition in the country, and more generally on the industrial sector. It gives also some opportunity to integrate more renewables potentially on site, and also within the country mix. So basically, this is well, let's say our leitmotif on the enablement program that we are developing, and we are prototyping with Aldel. Just to go in further detail, what we did together with Aldel, it's really that we, as Chris just mentioned, that there is an on-site green plan with different phases, and one of the phases is to stabilizing the grid. So use the flexibility and to stabilize the TNET sector area. And for that, we first focus on DR products, on explicit DR products, so FCR and AFR, MFRDA and AFR. So this is currently the main targets of the project the partnership, of the collaboration we have with Aldel. And we have, to summarize, three big streams. The first one is the investment. So we co-invest together in the flexibilization of the site. Sorry. So we work together on a shared BP, on a shared business plan over the coming 3 years, working together on the capex on both sides. So and all the opex, especially on the maintenance on the different infrastructure of electrical infrastructure. So it's energy pool, for instance, bring engineering times and some hardwares on the automation side and outsourcing for on site. And this is the combined capex is roughly $500,000 for the coming 3 years, and we do expect a payback within 1 year, 1.5 years. Well, unfortunately, the COVID situation is a bit well, we are struggling with that, obviously, but we will tackle. And then we are clearly working together in a collaborative way with the on-site engineers, with the management, the board, to assess the proper flexibility, how many megawatts we will be able to source and do all the risk assessment, because a plant like an aluminium smelter like Aldel is not an easy. It's really a complex system that we need to play with the actual process, aluminium process, which is quite tricky, and also the electrical infrastructure as it is right now. So we provide a global engineering to Aldel, and we are working with their process engineers closely. Also, all the control and IT system is core in this enablement of the flexibility. So basically, you have a small graph below the engineering box. This is what I would call the DR octopus. It's like you have so many links between the markets, the different auctioning platforms, the FCR regulation, the TNet platform, etc. So you need to provide all those IT links and the organization. And then obviously downstream you have this direct connection to the process, to the electrical infrastructure. So implementing instrumentation, automation, and assessing the proper modeling of the process and doing what we are aiming to do in terms of flexibility, in terms of power and energy. And finally, obviously, the final target is to operate and to form this flexibility to create value for the system and for the site and for the aggregator also, obviously. So we started in this year to work closely with MFRDA, especially with the move to daily auctions, and we plan to start FCR and AFR in 20 and 21. So this is the coming story on which we are working out currently. But this is one part of the project, and we do think that we also have other things to do on flexibility. And one of the promising new change on the process is also to integrate what we call on the aluminium sector a virtual battery. So to equip the different pods with insulation cooling system and electromagnetic field compensation. This will release a big amount of power and even a larger amount of energy in so few hours. So this is clearly another story. It's a very big investment, but we do think that this flexibility will clearly provide a big amount of flexibility to the power system, to the Dutch power system, and more generally the European one. Yeah, so basically this is the overall story that we were willing to to present in terms of partnership between two companies and doing clearly a win-win approach together, and yeah, to contribute to the energy transition, obviously. Thank you. So a quick poll seems to be appearing. Alicia, will you like to?
Yes, we do have, well, people are thinking regarding the pool, the question of whether you think commercial and industrial flex projects are more promising, whether are on congestion and grid management, FCR or FCR control, optimizing euros kilowatt hour price for companies, otherwise optimizing consumption and generation companies, and the last option is optimizing consumption and generation in local communities. So here we do have the results of the poll. If the speakers want to have a say on what they see, the most expected one and more promising are the congestion and grid management.
Alicia, if I may, Emmanuel speaking, it's clearly what we jointly with Aldel are performing or have launched, meaning to support the grid and to play a role as a power partner from the Aldel site towards the grid, and also to optimize the price of the electricity kilowatt hour, meaning that this would bring also, and this is part of the roadmap of Aldel top management, to optimize and to generate more competitivity in a worldwide or large European market like the aluminium manufacturing.
Okay. Thank you. If you're finished with the presentation, I do have some questions to ask you. So yeah. The first one will be for energy pool, and the question is whether you can offer your services to all aluminium companies across Europe, and whether they can all participate to balancing markets.
What is can you repeat the question?
Sure. If it's been told whether you can offer your service to all aluminium companies across Europe, and whether they all can participate to balancing markets.
Yes, we can do so, but as Edouard mentioned, and that this is also the joint roadmap that was defined with Aldel, it also requires some movement or some investment process in order to modernize the process and the technology and the technical plants. But yes, most of the time we can serve large industry, not only aluminium, but most of the electro-intensive industrial players.
And a question for both of you, for Aldel and for yourself. Since you started to talk until you are finally participating in balancing services, how long did it? How many months? How many years for the investment to happen, for the preparation of the aluminium plants and the business?
Yeah, so it's obviously depends on which products and which and how many megawatts on which product, but basically the initial business plan and we were able to commit on that business plan was a payback of 1 to 1.5 years. Currently, with the coronavirus situation, we will have clearly some months delay on that, unfortunately.
Okay, we also have another question that is asking how much capacity, megawatts, with Aldel, be able to offer on the FCR market?
So, well, without really revealing any roadmap on the Aldel balancing services, the usual figure we have in terms of aluminium smelter flexibility, for instance, for primary reserve FCR, is between 10 to 15% of the overall consumption. So the maximum target that, well, the maximum target that we are focusing on is the well, obviously the 15% of the overall plant consumption.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, it's mainly because of the dynamic. As you know, the FCR, we need to provide full power within 30 seconds and to remain stable for at least 15 minutes. And so the ramp up and the ramp down of the process itself is limiting the actual capacity.
Thank you. We have one more question that is asking for what are the biggest challenges in getting your core investment operational?
Well, I'd say that from a financial perspective, the big challenge is getting visibility on the future revenues from the investment. Like is that we're participating in a market, daily auctions and so on, and so on. We're seeing more obviously renewable energy, coming into the market and so on. And we think that there'll be more demand for these services. However, the supply side, is uncertain, and so for us, to make these, significant investments somewhere between 50 and 100 million euros is quite difficult without some future visibility on what we think those earnings will be. And then I would say also then from an operational perspective, aluminium smelters were built to take base load power with virtually zero interruptions to the consumption of energy. So what we're looking at doing, the adjustments we're looking at making are quite unique, and will take time to sort of fully optimize what we need to how to run our plant in a new way. But to be honest, I think it's quite exciting, because I don't think that there are many people who are looking at adjusting how they operate their plant to achieve these green targets. I think it's it's very much sort of business as usual from an operational perspective, and sort of often just sort of more efficiency type drives as opposed to actual fundamental shifts in the operating procedures. So I would say that the visibility on pricing and operational adjustments.
And in terms of when you take the decision on how much flexibility your plants and productions was able to produce, were you also taking into account contracts as a PPA and market acquisition of electricity?
Sorry, I missed the last part of the question. We take into account which one?
The PPAs and the acquisition of electricity from the market, together with the flexibility that you can provide, or they were completely two different optimization from your side?
Look, I mean, I think we have to take it. We have to take everything into consideration. Is that as a business we're looking to make investments, and and the flexibility can be used in various ways, and I think it all needs to be taken into account.
And I have two more questions for the time being, and I think if there are no more questions from the audience, we will cut after these two. So I will ask the two of them, and then you can reply to both of them. One is the assessment of the plant flexibility potential needs detailed process modeling. How is the chain between the companies in this modeling? Is this done by a joint team? And which tools are used for this? And the second question is for FCR and FRR. Do you offer symmetrically or only incremental bits? These are the two questions. So one is about how the modeling is done, what are the tools used, and whether you do it jointly. And the other one is for FCR and FRR, whether you offer symmetrically or only with incremental bits.
Yeah, so for the modeling, right? You said modeling in terms of flexibility modeling, or on the side?
Yes, flexibility for the process.
Yeah, so we are, well, we have, let's say we have two big streams to look at. The first one is obviously the process, so the industrial process, which is, as I said before, quite very complex actually. And so we are working indeed with the process engineers to agree upon, especially, and the main topic is actually the energy that we cannot unbalance, especially the thermal balance of the different parts. So this is, I cannot provide right now any specific tools, but this is mainly the knowledge and the experience of Aldel people. On the electrical side, we are indeed modeling. Well, for instance, on site you have about 10 rectifiers and some old ones, some new ones. So all this also electrical provision for FCR and MFR, DA, and etc. is to be assessed properly, and it's not really modeling. It's more again acknowledge and test. So the modeling is limited in terms of normal scientific modeling that we are expected. But then the second question in terms of FCR, obviously we are providing a symmetrical provision, so it's plus and minus, and yeah, this is clearly the objective, especially because we are looking for a mean, an average in terms of balance, in terms of energy, and FCR symmetrical provision can provide that. For MFR DA, it's purely currently upward, so curtailment. But for AFR, we are potentially looking also for symmetrical, but playing with the bidding strategy to avoid big downward.
Okay, sorry. Thank you very much for your presentation, for responding to the questions. So I would like to thank the three speakers, Emmanuel, Edouard, and Chris, and also the 130 attendees that we have for this first presentation. And after thank you the speakers and the attendees, I would like to go forward with the webinar and introduce to the next speaker. Her name is Philippa Hardy. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. The next speaker is Philippa Hardy. She's the leader of the development of Delta EE on demand side flexibility research. Delta is sort of looking at, and she does analyze the dynamic and the markets and development. She evaluates customer business model and technology innovations, and also they identify opportunities and assess and investigating the landscape and the feasibility price. With this, I would like to introduce the presentation of Philippa Hardy. She's going to be talking on the changing landscape of aggregators and commercial, industrial, demand side flexibility. So the floor is yours. Thank you, Philippa.
Thank you, Alicia, and thank you for having me on this conference today. It's great to be here. As Alicia's mentioned, I'm going to be talking about the changing landscape of EU aggregators. I've previously spoken at FLEXCON before, so you may recognise some of what I'm going to say today as an update to what I've mentioned previously. Before I start, I'm just going to give a very brief introduction to Delta EE for those on the line that may not have heard of us before. So we're a specialist research consultancy. We look at anything on the behind the meter to do with low carbon, customer centric, new energy. and we provide subscription research services as well as bespoke consultancy into the areas and the topic areas that you can see here. I work on our flexibility and energy storage research area, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. So we have a research team that just focus on this area. So today I'm going to start with a bit of a look at the market landscape, giving a bit of context, and then I'm going to dive straight into how we frame the commercial and industrial flexibility business model development, how we've seen this market change over the last few years, and then I'll end with a future outlook and what to watch out for. So without further ado, you may have already know that Delta EE and Smarten release our demand side flexibility market monitor. This is one of the maps from that, and we published our first edition at the start of this year, and we're just about to kick off our second edition, or the research for our second edition, which we're going to publish at the start of 2021. So if you want more information about that, let us know. But largely, this shows where demand-side flexibility is being monetized across Europe. So the darker orange countries here are where there's most activity. So across all of these different value streams that you see on the right-hand side here. Obviously, across Europe, there's variations around kind of the activity, and this is due to different markets being open, different competition, different regulation, maybe different needs for flexibility based on the generation mix. So there's lots of factors behind this, but it just gives you an overview of where we're seeing the highest activity across different countries. In terms of industrial and commercial customers engaging, these are maps that you won't have seen before, but are kind of part of the market monitor research that we do. This just shows where industrial customers are engaging in demand-side flexibility. It's largely in line with the map on the previous slide. So where there's highest activity in demand-side flexibility, there's also highest activity with industrial scale customers. And that's because this is a really key customer segment for demand-side flexibility. And it's really where the market started. Yes, there is activity in residential demand-side flexibility as well, and commercial, but it's a bit lighter than the industrial side of things. There are many drivers in this market and barriers, and these are leading to changes or driving, I guess, changes in demand side flexibility business models. I've listed a few here. So in terms of drivers, we've seen recently the impact of COVID, which although largely negative on the market, it's kind of almost proven the case for a need for flexibility across some countries. There's new value streams opening all the time. Yes, okay, there's uncertainty and there's volatility, which is creating barriers, but largely we're moving towards more openness, more availability, more accessibility of these value streams for the demand side. A clean energy package is clearly a driver for that. And yeah, a number of other drivers and barriers there. As I say, there's still barriers to overcome, and we're seeing these being addressed. And I've just popped in a graphic here of different FCR average availability prices in a couple of different markets. So in some markets, this has been decreasing. In other markets, it's a bit volatile. In some, it's stable. So it's about understanding the different market dynamics in each individual market and adapting business models to that. So that hopefully provides a little bit of context in the time I have available for how and why these business models are evolving and what the space looks like today. So moving on to commercial and industrial business models. I think largely, if you've seen one of my presentations before, our view this year remains largely unchanged on how this business model landscape is evolving. But for those that haven't seen one of my presentations before, this might be new. But largely, there's 5 core business models in this space. There's the aggregator model, the market creators in this space. They're still developing their business models, accessing new value streams, new customers, new types of assets, maybe different assets to what they're used to. or previously, and most are now would rather be known as technology companies or not aggregators, but for simplicity I'm trying to just provide this framework. Some have become balancing responsible parties, enabled to allow them to access intraday and day ahead markets without having to partner with a utility or partner with a very large customer that might already have access to those markets. We've seen a huge amount of acquisitions in this space from energy suppliers, buying the capabilities to become develop their own aggregator capabilities into part of their current operations. We've seen a bit of a software as a service boom. So this is maybe companies that started out as aggregators covering the whole value chain and then actually moving more towards providing a specialist niche in software. There's some new entrants in that space as well. And last but not least, new entrants. I think this is an interesting area. So not necessarily aggregators, not necessarily energy suppliers, some software, some products, but lots of kind of new startups finding very specific problems, creating a bit of a niche, carving out a new opportunity for themselves, but have largely not been any of these other roles before, so very much startups. So that's the 5 key business models we're seeing in this space for commercial and industrial customers. And the next couple of slides, I'll just give a few examples. It won't be comprehensive, and I'll give an overarching sort of business model and outlook. So the aggregator business model, as I mentioned, is consolidating. There's fewer players given acquisitions in this space or those that have moved away and become utilities in their own right. A couple of examples. And as I mentioned on the start, I do think maybe aggregator should be technology company, but for the sake of this presentation, I'm talking about aggregators. So these guys are directly working with customers, almost becoming a consultant as well as a technology provider, and has that direct relationship. They cover the whole value chain, and they're really trying to help customers understand the markets, the flexibility, and really implementing this on a site basis. Of the few remaining, they're diversifying across the value streams as much as possible, and because of that uncertainty in the market, but also to widen the opportunities for different customers to engage. Many look for partnerships with utilities, or others might work with customers that already have access to energy markets and help them optimize this position. So there's lots of variations around the offerings. Revenue share is the most common business model, with some offering white label solutions too. So again, it's typical, it doesn't define each of these independent players here. And I think one of the interesting things we're seeing more so this year is actually being an independent aggregator is now more of a USP than it was because of the movement in this space. Next up, we've got the aggregators becoming or having the balancing responsibility. And that's really to access intraday and day ahead markets themselves to be able to trade directly into the market. So rather than having to have a partnership with a utility, they can go after this market by themselves and trade. So they can provide access to customers and they can trade for customers. And some might even supply or retail electricity to customers too. So a few different players there, the business model there. So it's really about allowing customers access to the markets, all of the markets, and potentially optimizing the electricity retail for them. There are fewer players offering this sort of service, and it's a bit of a distinguisher at the moment. But I think there's going to be maybe more offering this service. So if it's a matter of trying to create a partnership with the utility or become a balancing responsible part of themselves, there's a bit of a question mark into which way people will go. Incumbent energy companies, so I've mentioned energy suppliers here, have been acquiring a lot over the past few years. A few examples there. So they now have the capabilities for offering demand-side flexibility to C&I customers on distributed assets directly themselves. So they've done this via acquisition. Some have developed this in-house as well. And there's also an interesting trend of other kind of energy incumbents, so energy service companies as well as oil and gas companies buying aggregator or technology companies, but also starting up retail chains, so direct competitors to utilities as well as aggregators. So it's an interesting area that's starting to develop, and we'll see where that goes as well. In terms of where this is going, so at the moment the capabilities have been acquired, they're becoming, or they are part of normal operations, and what we're starting to see is a trend towards energy as a service. So if energy utilities are covering the whole value chain, they can offer more of a service offering to the C&I customer, and I'll come back to that a bit later on. Software as a service companies. So we've seen many aggregators become very much software only companies providing these solutions only, and effectively some have moved from aggregators covering the whole value chain to now just focusing on just offering this software or specialist software to utilities, to asset owners, to network operators, maybe to end customers directly. Some, as I mentioned, have come from maybe the aggregator space. Others have come just as startups and not been aggregators previously. And all of these examples are very different, so please don't think they're the same. But largely, the business model is more around subscription rather than revenue sharing and cost avoidance. Again, there's a lot of different businesses here, so I wouldn't like to compare them, but just to give you more of a feel for what's going on. Last but not least, new entrants. They're finding new niches, carving out more opportunity, and I think with the demand side flexibility market growing and more players are entering this space, it's becoming more competitive, and therefore we're seeing more innovation as well. And really that innovation is driven by the increasing complexity of demand side flexibility, the need for more solutions, the need for a range of problems to be solved, whether that's a very niche software, whether that's a new marketplace, whether that's an energy management tool. There's lots of different needs for new entrants. So a few examples. These are largely, these guys haven't come from an aggregator role or a utility role. They're very much startups, brand new companies that are establishing themselves. A few different reasons here, or a few different business models. So there's not really one business model that describes all of these players. As I mentioned, there's lots of different solutions. Some are becoming marketplaces for the DSO value streams. Others are providing a product. Some are providing services. So it's a really new space that we're tracking, finding new companies all the time actually, and adding to our competitor infobase. I think we've got a poll now. And hopefully.
So maybe you cannot see the screen, Philippa. I can share the questions with you. So the questions are: unlocking flexibility in industry and commerce, which are the biggest bottleneck in your opinion. Understanding of the need and benefit of flex is too low. Implementing is hard, if not core business. Or financial benefits and opportunities are uncertain. Please select your answer.
Perfect. Great. I think that's pretty much what I expected. So yeah, customer understanding is low. I think we've 16%. Yes, okay, there is some understanding still needed, some education, awareness raising, still required for maybe those not involved. So that's as expected, but that's quite low, which is what I would have expected now. Implementing is hard, complex, and not core business is the largest response there, which again is expected. It's not part of the core business, and it's complex to understand. It's hard to implement. It's not been done before. It's new, so there's lots of hurdles and barriers there. And yes, the financial benefits and opportunities are unclear. So that's 39%, I think. Again, yeah, I'd agree. That's how I would have expected that poll to turn out, because the market is very dynamic, I've described, and yeah, there's lots of uncertainty there. Moving on, if you can see my screen now. So the last part of the presentation just wanted to look at the future and what that might look like for C&I businesses and what to consider. There's two factors that are kind of hot topics at the moment and really are going to help shape this market further. One is DSO and the localization of the need for flexibility. And the second, as I mentioned earlier, is energy as a service and the business models that are going to grow around that for C&I customers, hopefully to remove the complexity of this market and the risk and the things that we mentioned on the poll just a minute ago. First up, DSO markets. We've got a whole report on this, and I was presented just last week on PECLO's conference about the DSO and localization of demand side flexibility. As we've assessed this, there's kind of two things going on, I guess. There's across Europe harmonization of products. So we see TER, MARI, Picasso, FCR coordination products. So there is some coordination at a European level, but we are seeing local markets developing, and that's due to the change in system and the changing needs at a very local level. Now, these aren't standardized or harmonized locally or nationally. This is very much an emerging market, but we see activity already in 9 markets, with the most mature market being GB, and followed by the Netherlands. So this is something we're keeping track of, and it basically provides a new value stream to customers. And last but not least, energy as a service, we think is going to be key, a key business model, and flexibility is really going to be a core aspect of that, because to provide energy as a service, you need the flexibility in the customer as part of that proposition. So we define flexibility as really a full service comprising a bundle of demand side and supply side measures, as well as ongoing services that are really designed around the needs of the C&I customer, obviously due to the type or the customer segmentation, it's largely bespoke. And we also define it as taking away these 5 risks from the customer. And again, that will address the issues around the uncertainty of the market and help provide services to customers and help them engage more, whilst also building a profitable business out of this. So I think this is a really interesting area and something we're currently commissioning a couple of reports on. So if you want more information on that, then please do get in touch. And I think that it brings me to my last slide. That is on time as well, hopefully. But thank you for listening. Hopefully that's given you a very quick snapshot and a bit of a framework into how we're seeing the business models and the market for C&I customers. And feel free to ask any questions.
So Philippa, thank you very much for, we do have a poll.
Oh yeah, sorry, you're doing I forgot about that one. Yeah, so energy as a service contracts. Which of the following statements would you agree with? Are you providing energy as a service? Have you implemented it? So are you working in an organisation that has an energy as a service contract already? Do you provide these contracts? Do you know someone that's on an energy as a service contract? Do you think actually the momentum is there and it's a real big opportunity, or vice versa? Do you think, you know, actually this is maybe a bit of hot air, it's not, the benefits aren't there yet, energy as a service is a bit overrated? So let us know what you think, and then I'll take questions from the audience. Interesting. So the most popular view there, the momentum for energy as service is large. That's like nearly half of respondents, which is really interesting. Very few working that have implemented or are working in organisations that are on an energy as a service contract, which is again how we see the market at the moment from our research. There's a few organisations out there trying kind of different parts of it, but no one providing that sort of holistic business model yet that we can see. There is steps in development and things happening, but yeah, we're yet to see that full service offering. So yeah, really interesting, great. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Philippa, for your presentation. So we have a few questions. I will go one by one because we still have like 7 minutes to go. So the first one is whether you believe that the question is why will COVID be a driver of demand side flexibility?
So as I mentioned at the start, obviously it's had huge negative impacts across the board, across all industries, across the economy, and you know it can't be stated enough. So I'm not for 1 minute saying it's purely positive, but we've seen in some markets that actually it's highlighted that demand side flexibility can help address needs where industry and commercial shut down and there is a oversupply or demand and supply profiles don't meet. Demand side flexibility has stepped in there, and so for example in the British market there's been a new service that has been established, a new ancillary service has been established off the back of COVID. So we have seen opportunities, and we've quite a few of the aggregators we've talked to have kind of told us the same thing. They said, you know, this, yeah, okay, negative impacts on the business currently, but actually it's showing that there is a need for demand side flexibility to play a real integral role in the energy system.
Okay, thank you. One more question here is have the incentive structures to DSO changed to allow DSOs to launch local flexibility markets?
Have the incentives changed?
Yes.
Is that? Okay, so in each kind of country might have different regulations and incentives. So in the UK and Netherlands, the energy regulators have incentives that are encouraging those markets to develop, which is why the activity is highest there. The clean energy package does have a range of measures in it that are specifically going to help open up the DSO markets as well. So basically there's 4 or 5 principles. I can go into more detail offline to whoever's concerned, but largely it's going to allow price signals and accessibility to markets for customers. It's going to help incentivize DSOs to procure flexibility where cost effective compared to grid reinforcement, and a number of other factors. Now that's already been passed, and we're looking to 2021 where drivers from the European Clean Energy Package might translate down into national law. So yeah, wait to be seen. But I think there's a real appetite actually across the board when we speak to DSOs in lots of different countries. They want to learn from what's happening in more advanced markets. There's the marketplaces from startups that I mentioned in my presentation, you know, internationalizing already, going to different countries and engaging with DSOs. So there's a lot of action there, there's a lot of momentum, and I think some incentives are there, some incentives are coming, but yeah, in some markets there's an argument for how much to regulate and standardize and how much just to crack on and innovate. And as long as there's not a complete barrier and a stopper, then there's no reason to innovate and use demand side flexibility instead of grid reinforcement.
And we do have one more question, and it's regarding the relationship between the DSOs and the TSO, whether you have overlooked at this relationship between both of them, and whether from Delta you are considering what the flexibility network code should include to make the flexibility works between DSO, TSO, and aggregations.
So repeat the question, what the
relationship between the DSO and the TSO and the flexibility network code.
Okay, yeah, it's quite a detailed question. So some of my colleagues know much more about the network code and the details of that than me. So if you want more details on that, please do get in touch after this. But largely, we've seen evidence of TSO-DSO coordination in many markets. Obviously, the aggregator role is largely unregulated at the moment. It's not really stopping them, though, coordinating and talking and hand-holding DSOs and TSOs into what they can do. I think it's very important that there is coordination between all these parties and the providers of flexibility and where the need for flexibility is. And I think that's going to continue to increase as this market develops further.
Okay, and this is the very final question. So what is the uptake of energy efficiency companies and platforms to become service providers for aggregation and flexibility?
So was the question, should energy service companies become aggregators?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure about should. If they want to, they can. I think energy service companies they already have a direct interface to customers. They can already help them understand their energy management, and they're really well positioned actually to offer additional services, and demand side flexibility could be a core part of that to help the customer save money, but also to generate revenue. So I see that it's a real big opportunity for them. Whether they want to or not is a different matter. If they don't want to or they don't do something soon, then it's likely that aggregators or startups or other software companies might come in and take that role, as they are already doing. So it's a matter of how innovative and how much they want to improve or expand their service offering.
Okay, so Philippa, we just got one final question that came in. So the question is, are the added value of energy as a service big enough for commercial and industrial consumers?
Is the added value enough for C&I customers?
Yes.
Is that? Again, going back to my presentation, we are not really seeing a full service offering yet today. I haven't really seen any evidence of any organisation bring all of the different aspects as our holistic definition. I've not really seen that yet. I think there is enough value there when you bring everything together today, and I think there will be even more value there in the future. And I really do think it's an offer that we are going to see grow more. It kind of brings everything together. It brings the increased connectivity, the industrial IoT. It brings together the different value streams. It brings together the whole energy efficiency piece, energy management, energy retail. It's the bit that gels everything together to make energy easy for customers, which in this ever increasingly complex market, there's a real need for that actually.
Okay, so thank you very much, Philippa, for your time today and for your presentation. I'm sorry whether the sound is not good on my side. I'm trying my best to make it much more clear. And I will pass to the third block of presentation. And please join me to say thank you to Philippa. And we go ahead with the next presentation. Bye, Philippa.
Thank you very much, Alicia. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
And we're gonna go ahead to the third presentation. And it's going to be about industrial and commercial flex. And this presentation today is going to be done by the Dutch supplier company Nieuwestroom and EasyEnergy. And the speakers are going to be Remko, who belongs to the Dutch energy company Nieuwestroom. And they are looking to provide dynamic prices. I think this is key for their offering. And together with Remko, we're going to have Pieter. He's the CFO of EasyEnergy and Nieuwestroom. And together, they're going to tell us what is the importance for market prices instead of fixed prices. And then they will go ahead to introduce us. This is the value for the industrial commercial consumers. So please go ahead. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alicia. So my name is Pieter. I'm CFO of Nieuwestroom. And indeed, I will do this presentation with Remko at Barge. He's a CEO and founder of Nieuwestroom. Well, they started the company with 5 people in 2012 with the idea or vision, you know, to give small and medium enterprises access to dynamic pricing, which for the time I think was pretty visionary. I joined the company in 2018. So in 2018, we also bought EasyEnergy. This is the same concept, but for households. Both are balancing responsible party. And in 2019, we bought Ipsum Energy. This is a company that is developing an algorithm, you know, for disaggregation of smart meter data. And lastly, we are developing solar PV. With reference to the last speaker, a virtual power plant is what we want to build. We are now with 75 colleagues and have 2.5 terawatt hours in portfolio. 120 terawatt hours is used in the Netherlands as a whole. Approximately, well, 1/3 by households, 1/3 SME, and 1/3 industry. So there's a lot of volume in SME and households if you aggregate it. It's a good moment, you know, for question 1, I think.
So if we have to, can we realize the energy transition to 100% renewable energy system with fixed pricing energy contract as the standard? So we have to choose between the following option: yes, no, or do no. So please go ahead. Remko,
That's a good answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was hoping for this answer. It is exactly what we see. It's absolutely not possible, you know, when we continue with the fixed pricing contracts that most of the market is unfortunately still using. If I look at the company and where we are now, we are really a purpose-driven company with a mission to speed up the energy transition, because of course it is very important to do so. So the statement, I think it's pretty easy to agree upon what you know, this statement, but it sounds very logical, you know, to do this, of course, but there are many ideas and opinions about the reasons why we should do it or why it is even happening. And well, I'm honored and it's great to share our philosophy and some perspective on this matter with you today. So, you know, the energy transition, the train has left the station, I think, and it's even speeding up. And what is happening if you talk about the energy transition? If you look at this slide, it's in fact, you know, we're moving from a system that is resource based, that is represented on the right side of this slide, to a system that is renewable based, that is represented on the left side. And what we see in this slide is, you know, the perspective on the reserves that are proven in you know, if you look at the fossil or resource-based system, and if you see it in perspective to what we are using on an annual basis, but also what the yearly potential is, well, this is I think very important to realize. Yeah, what the relationship is between the two, what the potential is. That is even more important. So question 2, let's do that at this time.
So I will read it, and then afterwards, if you can comment on it. What's the biggest driver for the energy transition? Is climate change? Is economics? Is current resources are limited? Or is technology? Thank you.
Yes. Well, actually, this is what we also see when we talk with everybody, and it is I think well, let me share some perspectives on this. I was expecting this answer, by the way. What we see is that our economy has become addicted and totally dependent on energy, and so one could argue that we eventually, as well, again, you look at the right side of the slide, your current system is finite. So eventually we have to move to a different system because, well, if we run out of resources, this would be a disaster for the current economy and social system. So even when climate change would not have been an issue, the current system would not be sustainable, and we'd have to make the transition anyway, right? I think it would not be wise to continue on the path, which is happily we're not continuing on this path. From our standpoint, if you look at the rhetoric and what politicians and everybody is, there's a lot of emphasis on climate change, and of course everybody agrees that it is very important that we do it. Because it has, if we continue, it has very negative consequences for climate. But the downside of this story is that we, the association with people, with everybody, is that because we have to do it because of climate change, the association is that it's becoming more expensive. And I think that the economics are a huge driver as well, maybe even bigger, of course. The business case has become because of economies of scale, technology. If you look at solar and wind, so the production costs are coming down, and the new renewable energy production is becoming more and more competitive by the day, with the old system. So I think we should emphasize this much more, because then we may realize more in general that we're looking at the biggest economic opportunity that we have had in the last century, and we should embrace it more like an opportunity. Also. Of course, there's a lot of challenge if you look at what we have to do. If you look at the vast amounts of energy that we use, but also the scale of the industry, there's a lot of embedded capital in there. We're looking at a massive shift. So there's a lot that has to be done. But I think that managing the disruption is more of a challenge than that we know what should be done. I think from a technology point of view, it's getting clearer, what the new system should look like. Solar and wind is accelerating. That's fantastic, and flex is behind the curve. And it's very clear, that we need a lot more flex on commercial and industrial scale or utility scale, and we believe that dynamic pricing or time of use pricing plays a really important role in pooling distributed assets. Industry is a large user, but if we aggregate small and medium enterprises and households, there's a lot of potential there as well. So maybe good to look at the price curve. This is the curve that we offer to our clients. So we offer access, of course, and I show you the curve of California because this is a perfect example, because the business case of solar started there earlier. It's very a lot of sun there, and they started stimulation. So this is a good example to look at what is happening if you add more solar to the mix. Of course, the price is at night is lower, and then we have the morning ramp. Then you have peak demand at the end of the day, and in 2012 they started to build more solar, and I think now they're around 30% or so on the grid. And you see what is happening with the price curve. It's pretty obvious why the price is coming down during the sun hours, because there's obviously more production. but it's also typical that during the peak, the price will go up because it's not very efficient, to if you look at the utilities, they're not really flexible, especially coal is not flexible, and turning down having to turn down those power plants and turn them up at night when the sun goes down is inefficient, and it leads to higher pricing. This is of course a consequence of more solar that is added to the mix. And what we don't want is that this overproduction can be solved by curtailment, but that's not what we want in the end. Of course, we're producing energy and we have to throw it away. So we have to find a solution for that. And we think that dynamic pricing is really important, a really important factor in this. Also in the Netherlands, when we look at specific data, this was a Sunday in 2019. We see that we have, because it's really expensive to turn down the utilities, you see negative prices. And when we give this to customers, we give customers access to these prices. You have an incentive, and this is really important. You have an incentive to steer or create demand-side response with a lot of distributed assets, like, for example, EV cars. Batteries are going to be really important, we think. Not only EVs. Sometimes you hear, we don't have the electricity if we start to drive with EVs, but we believe that we need a lot of EVs to make this transition, to create the flex volume that we need to make it possible to increase renewable production on the grid. And it looks like this. If you, for example, add, and this is not only EV, but also stationary grid storage that we add. Is of course what we need to do. We need to shift what is produced during the sun hours to a later to a time of the day that we need this energy. And last thing, and then I'll pass on to Remko. The technology, if you look at battery, we see exactly the same development there that we saw with wind and solar. This is decades of improvement, and the technology can be scaled up if you are at the right cost level. If you look at the current technology in batteries, it is at the cost level that we really can scale up, and this is what we will see in the coming years. Batteries are perfect for flex. They are 100 times faster than the fastest peaker plant. The only thing is costs. So if the costs come down and we have the capacity to produce it, this will be a major change to flex markets. If that capacity will be available, we see a lot of, and this can also be scaled. A household can have a battery on the wall, but we can also put large utility scale batteries in combination with wind and solar farms, and everything in between on commercial scale. We can put batteries that can be managed in sort of a distributed pool with commercial clients. So we're very positive about this development. Remko?
Thank you very much. Yes, I'm one of the founders of Nieuwestroom, and to start with the beginning, Philippa Hardy mentioned it. To make energy very easy for everyone, we developed the software and the licenses to provide this market access to everyone in the Netherlands. We use the smart meters for this. We do it in the Netherlands since 2013, and we'll start in Belgium next year when the smart meter rollout the smart meters will provide the data. In the history of Nieuwestroom, after our first 10,000 contracts with business clients, Roland Berger made an investigation about the financial benefits of dynamic pricing compared to fixed pricing. And after 20,000 business clients, there was another investigation, and I want to present this to you. And this slide shows the correlation between the spot price and the CO2 intensity, which is not correlated in history. But if we see on the next slide, for the future, CE Delft did this, a little bit more details about their power flex model. And for 2017, on some random dates, you see the energy mix by then. And then without this correlation with the spot market, day ahead hourly pricing. On the next slide, we see this changing to the future. Again, some dates with in the winter, so the solar is limited here, but we can do it all year. The energy mix is changing. We have to do it as soon as possible to change to 100% renewable energy consumption. And to have this consumption, yeah, we need flex. We need this market access to dynamic pricing, which has a lot of benefits, and the economics of this moves our client to choose to step in the model of the future and to have additional steps. And CO2 reduction is an important reason for like trade organizations in the Netherlands. It's a reason of trade associations, I mean, which our clients are member of. The clients want to reduce their bill, increase their comfort, and the trade associations, they are they are focusing also on carbon reductions, which we think is a good thing, and we wanted this investigation, and CE Delft executed this. You see 2023, the energy mix is changing, and on the next slide, of course, we are willing to provide the whole investigation, the complete report. It's public, but if you want to download it, as well as the Roland Berger from the past, send us an email if you cannot find it online. Here you see the correlation between the two in 2023. This is very interesting, and we see the cheap hours have less CO2 intensity, which is logical maybe, but now confirmed, and increasing impact of solar is causing this. On the next slide, we put this next to each other, the past and the future, and it's if we look further, 2030, and in the report is also the UK, and then as an example, what we lack is an hourly real-time CO2 factor. This would be even better for the investigation, but the confirmation of the correlation is a reason, an extra reason for clients use the electricity when it's cheap, and this impact with more and more renewables, which we need demand response to speed up the transition to 100% renewable energy consumption. On the last slide of this investigation, it's also during the year with the seasons, you see some impact of the CO2 intensity of the future. And I think in the lowest part, Pieter, of the sheet, this shows another. Is there? Okay, this is yes. This one is, of course, no one can look into the future, and what we want to offer to end clients is a solution without risk premiums of fixed pricing, and with an incentive to use electricity when it's cheap, and this saves a lot of money.
Tengo que presentar a otra persona aquí. Ok, te llamo otro día, Nico, gracias.
I hear some background I will continue with this sheet. Maybe I hope you're all familiar with the marshmallow test. People, like children, they want the marshmallow, and we experience now for 8 years that dynamic pricing is the first marshmallow. You don't have to wait, you don't have to invest, you save money, you create budget, and then Flex will be the next marshmallow. And then solar is also a marshmallow, and electric vehicles as well, smart charging, batteries, it's all there on the roadmap. And we as a company with the licenses, also as BRP, sent the energy bill for us. And we can also add partners. So we are open for partners with smart solutions for the clients. And the result of all the smart solutions is on the energy bill. So this is for us a very nice way of working and to provide the market access to clients and their partners. I think we have a question about the risk premiums for SME and households. How much risk premiums can they save with dynamic pricing, time of use, compared to fixed pricing? Good to see. Thank you very much. And we see an increasing, the risk premiums are increasing, and it's good to see that everyone is aware, almost everyone, that this is a lot of easy money as a first step. And then the last question we'd like to ask you is how much faster can we go if dynamic pricing will be the new standard? How much faster can we realize the energy transition to a 100% renewable consumption? I don't see those last words. Very excited what you think about this. And then we are open for questions.
Yeah. By the way, the marshmallow test is referring to a test in which children are asked to stare at a marshmallow and to not touch it during 15 minutes or so. And if they're able to do that, they will receive a second one. And practically, well, I think 80% or 85% of the children takes the marshmallow now. And this is also, if you look at climate change, nobody, a large part of the people is not really willing to take up more costs. And the actual answer in the first question is that with dynamic pricing, you have an advantage of between 20 to 30%. And this is the marshmallow that we are referring to. So actually, it's larger than your estimation. That's good to know. And our clients are really, I think this is an explanation of the growth that we have seen since 2012 to where we are now. So it's a very good concept. Clients like it, and we should see more of this. Energy companies should make dynamic pricing much more available to their clients.
Yeah, and with all the partners and the presenters of FLEXCON, we have solutions for them. And the answer to this question, I'm very glad to see this. We can realize it together. And yeah, thank you for these answers. Alicia, thank you.
So Remko and Pieter, apologize because I got a mute. So my apologies to you and the audience. So we do have a question that asks for a clarification. Can you please clarify the correlation you highlighted between CO2 intensity and spot price?
Yes, we want to go back to this slide.
Yes, there is a clarification request whether you can talk about the correlation between the CO2 intensity and the spot price.
Yes, this correlation is during the day. Cheap hours have limited CO2 intensity in the future, which was not the case in the past. All has to do with the energy mix of the production of the energy, and in the future with more solar and wind, this is already in 2023. You see this correlation and the change in the correlation in these years. If we look further in the future, it's more and more interesting. And I think this sheet shows the overview of the story in the past 4 sheets.
Yeah. So the explanation I should add to this, that it's of course the energy mix is changing, but it's also that when we have the correct incentive and we can create demand-side response, that we are less depending on power plants that have to be how do you say this, to fill this in. You know, if you increase the production of a coal or a gas plant, this is not the best efficiency. It's not thermally, not efficiency is lower, but they are built, you know, to be on a sort of a continuous production. So if we do this with the correct incentive, because production with wind and solar is not, we cannot steer or control it, and if we can create demand-side response with a flex market that is growing more mature, then we can prevent this inefficient filling in the gaps, as say by power plants, because that is also from a carbon point of view less efficient. So this is also the case if we develop this flex market. And this is why it's really important that more dynamic pricing will come to the market to do this, to realize this.
So Pieter and Remko, we have a few questions and we have 1 minute. So if you can be short on the answers, we will try to get them all because they are very interesting.
Yes.
So do you charge your customer based on average daily spot price or hourly priced?
Hourly price. Nothing, we don't use averages or profiles, everything hourly.
Okay, so next question. Time of use tariff are considered very risky. How will we avoid the event that all assets go automatically to use more energy when it's cheap? The network is not made for such simultaneous behavior.
If I understand it correctly, if all assets would do this, like an overreaction,
yes.
This is, yeah, we saw this in the industrial market with farmers using, but if we see this, we are reaching the goal. I'm not worried. We have to start. We are just starting all together here with a vision, with steps, with solutions, and we have to make it very easy. And the overreaction, a flat line for the energy markets. Yes, if that will happen, we can do something else, but it will not happen. It's such a challenge. Flex is lagging behind all the solar and wind which is added to the network. So no worries about that.
Okay,
so we optimize the. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we optimize the usage of the current grid. So of course we have the choice of, do we invest in increasing the capacity of the grid, which is expensive, or do we, when we have a lot of solar, for example, there's a lot of congestion, a lot of energy is coming in a distributed way onto that grid. If we have a system that stimulates that, for example, look at electrical vehicles, that all the cars are charging in a distributed way and taking up this energy, the grid will be stabilized and not the other way around.
Okay, so that's perfect. We get to take 4 minutes more. So I have to say, Pieter and Remko, thank you. And also for the more than 106 attendees that we have listening to today's webinar at this time. And then after I thank you, Pieter and Remko, for your presentation and your time, I will go ahead to present the next speakers. So thank you both.
Thank you.
So the next speaker is Benjamin Grunfeld from the Guidehouse. He's the partner and leader on the energy and sustainable and infrastructure, part of the Guidehouse consulting firm. And he's responsible for supporting the energy company and utility business for Guidehouse in Europe and in the Middle East. So his presentation is going to be on making flexibility work. So Benjamin, we are looking forward for your presentation and to learn how you're going to make it work. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Alicia. Can you see my presentation up on the screen now?
Yes, we do. Thank you very
wonderful. Much. Excellent. Okay. So let me just close this. Great. Thank you. So what I wanted to talk with everyone a bit about today, and I'll do my best to fit this presentation in around some of the very interesting material that my co-presenters have shared over the last hour and a half. And maybe it sort of makes sense to start with just a really quick kind of introduction to Guidehouse and who we are and where we operate. So really quickly, Guidehouse is a management strategy advisory global company. Was formed about a year ago, actually, with the merger of the public sector arm of PricewaterhouseCoopers in the U.S. and Navigant. And Navigant had previously entered the European market through an acquisition of Ecofis. So there's a legacy of activity and involvement in the European energy markets, and certainly a very strong and active engagement and involvement in the North American energy markets. I lead our team outside of the US. We do a lot of work with all segments of the what I'll call flexibility, or what we used to call demand side management value chain. And we're heavily involved in strategy, policy design, market design, all the way through to program execution and pilot and large scale rollout. So very actively involved. I'll spend sort of, I think, a fair bit of my time this morning talking a bit about the evolution of flexibility. What we're seeing both in the North American market as well as in the European markets. As my accent gives away, I am a North American Canadian, and spent a lot of my career working in Canada. I now live in the Netherlands, work in the Netherlands and across Europe, and so we'll try to bring both of those perspectives. Recognizing that obviously the markets are different, the current state is different, the state of evolution is different. So let me jump in. This has really been covered quite a bit already today. I'll only spend a few minutes on it. I think everyone, at least everyone on this call, agrees and sort of recognizes, the need for flexibility, the need for more responsive demand, if you will, or the need for resources either in front of the meter or behind the meter that give system operators more flexibility and ability to respond to intermittent supply, manage voltage issues, reactive power, things of that nature that were traditionally provided outside of hydro-rich regions, traditionally provided by large thermal plants. And so, as we proceed with the energy transition, and those large thermal plants play, a different or diminishing role in the energy systems, there's need for alternative flexibility resources. I think also, generally speaking, there is an increased overall need for flexibility and increased recognition of the value of flexibility in improving utilization rates of existing infrastructure, as in particular as we continue to face cost pressure around the energy transition and decarbonization. The ability to make better use of existing assets, which in the power and gas space today are generally only 2/3 utilized most of the time. There's significant benefit in being able to enhance that. So that's the need. Again, I don't think I'll get many challenges around from this group anyways on the need for additional flexibility. We've talked a lot about demand response or demand side responsiveness or demand management. Talked a lot about storage. Two other sources of flexibility that I'll just throw out there for consideration: conversion. So conversion of electrons to molecules, either in the form of heat, which then gets used, or in the form of hydrogen molecules, which can then get stored or used or transported and used elsewhere. That provides additional flexibility, when you're thinking about supply resources. And then the other would be interconnectors, right? And more transfer capability between zones, between regions, between countries, between parts of the energy system. So sort of two types of interconnections between different energy carrier systems, and then interconnections within say the electricity grid. And then I think the last piece is around sort of financial support contracts for flexibility, and certainly the support mechanisms or the markets for flexibility have not been as generous as some of the support mechanisms for things like renewable generation, in terms of providing security of revenue, or certainty of revenue and long-term durability of revenue. And so market players are generally having to piece it together from multiple places, piece the revenue picture together from multiple places, and piece it together in terms of multiple flexibility resources to be able to balance and manage their portfolios. We have an evolved view of what we think integrated planning capabilities need to be in order to really to fully realize the value of flexibility within energy systems. They need to be accounted for, right? And they need to be planned for and included as part of the longer term and more holistic planning exercises that are undertaken either by regional entities, NSOE, NSOG, by governments at the national or multinational level, by system operators, and because otherwise what ends up happening is you still continue to build out traditional infrastructure, build out supply resources, and overcompensate, and sort of diminish the value over the long term of flexibility resources. So there's a real need, and we certainly see this in North America, where you tend to have less vertical unbundling than you have in the European markets. This need for more sophisticated integrated planning that looks at advanced load forecasting and DER forecasting in terms of adoption, as well as capabilities, all the way through to more advanced distribution and transmission system planning that accounts for the availability of flexibility resources at all voltage levels, and in lots of different pockets across the network. So one of the, so again, so just to kind of close this out, but this idea that we won't fully realize the value and the benefits associated with flexibility if we're not planning for them and accounting for them as part of some of the larger initiatives that are underway. DSM has evolved. So again, DSM is sort of the old name for flexibility in a lot of markets, demand side management. I think flexibility, personally, much more accurately reflects what it is, both the variability of resources that provide flexibility to the system, but also the ability of these resources to play across multiple markets and provide different benefits. In the past, and this has a little bit of a North American focus to it, but I think is also applicable in Europe. Focus was very much on energy savings, separate demand response efforts to reduce peak load. Customers were just a vehicle, right? It was not, the customers were a vehicle to get DSM, and technology, was primarily for end use measures. I think today we're seeing more value and recognition of the value across energy savings, demand savings, fast response capabilities, but it's still not fully there. There's greater integration, greater customer engagement, and more, use of DERMS or other platforms to aggregate and provide visibility and recognition of the value. But we see it going further. I think there's tremendous opportunity for flexibility to provide greater locational benefits, which we're sort of starting to see. If you look at some of the locational flex auctions in the UK or in other markets, really starting to see the benefits of flexibility at the locational level. I'll talk more about the expansion or multi-dimensional benefits as well, but certainly recognizing the carbon emission reductions, reliance on data and technology, much more customer centric today than even 3 or 5 years ago in terms of the benefit to customers and the services and provided to customers as that are ultimately providing these resources. And that also gets to things like financing, which we think is a critical element to really be able to unlock some of the flexibility resources that have struggled to come to market over the last decade. So what are the characteristics of future flexibility resources and programs? I think DSM certainly becoming, or flexibility resources are becoming much more multidimensional. It's similar. The individual resources are playing across different markets, providing different benefits. In terms of carbon reduction, locational benefits, temporal or load shape benefits, demand savings, energy savings. And across the different types of benefits. So that's one aspect we see. Certainly becoming much more data intensive. You can look at the ability to integrate extensive grid and market price data, AMI data, CRM and consumer metadata when it comes to targeting customers or identifying potential clusters of customers to target, whether they're industrial all the way down to residential, and much more advanced and integrated flexibility resources. And when we think about that, we talk about distributed storage, demand response, energy efficiency, strategic load growth, and management of that, and then obviously your distributed generation resources, and being able to integrate those across platforms and across connection points and across multiple customers is becoming and is critical to the growth in the flexibility market. We're seeing it more and more integrated within the core businesses of customers, but also I think it was Philippa who talked about the energy retailers making big investments and really expanding into the space in Europe and being able to offer traditional energy contracts along with or as well as flexibility type solutions and services, which provide benefit both to them and the systems, but also to the customers in different ways. So, much more, part of business as usual, but as, as was discussed, I think in the first presentation today, still for the customers in particular, something new, something different, something that, executives in global head office are certainly becoming more familiar with, but is not part of the day-to-day. Let's keep the widgets flowing. And then it's becoming much more technology dependent. And so, very much in terms of control, but also intelligence monitoring, self-healing, automated response, We're seeing AI algorithms and RPA algorithms being applied to manage and respond to price signals and manage and respond to changes within industrial and commercial facilities or within homes. So, much more sophisticated technology set enabling greater deployment and greater adoption of flexibility resources. And then finally, customer centric. And I'll talk about this a little bit later on as well. The biggest barrier to flexibility or the expansion of sort of the flexibility markets. We talk about barriers upstream in wholesale markets, or we talk about barriers in the policy and the regulation. But at the end of the day, it boils down to customer willingness to pay and customer propensity, and the customer centric approach that I think a number of the leading providers of flexibility services and energy service providers generally are taking are really looking at trying to break that down and make it easier for customers to adopt, make it easier for customers to see the benefits, make it easier for customers to feel connected and part of the process and engaged with their provider. Both, again, this is examples at the personal level, but also at the commercial industrial level as well. So I mentioned adoption and deployment still hinges on customer propensity to pay, and this is one of the things that Guidehouse does on a fairly regular basis is just look at from a customer perspective, where's the value and what's the necessary level of value to be able to invest in or provide access to equipment, provide access to space within commercial industrial facilities to really make it worth their while. And to start to see significant adoption. And obviously, incentives and other mechanisms have been used in the past to improve customer propensity or improve the economics for customers. But we're seeing more and more of an emphasis being placed on financing options. And obviously the sort of transition from upfront you pay for it to various different types of commercial arrangements with customers where costs are spread out, costs are shared, risks are shared, benefits are shared, different mechanisms for improving the overall customer economics, recognizing that most commercial and industrial customers have fairly substantial capital constraints, and that limit their ability to deploy capital on non-core activities. We do a lot of work as an organization with companies that are developing and bringing to market flexibility programs. One of the key things that we're seeing is this sort of transition from kind of input driven or fixed structures to much more flexible and outcome driven pay for performance type of mechanisms. And the programs or the offerings that are gaining traction and really seeing kind of market share growth tend to capture and reflect some of these considerations, right? So moving from individual measures based to outcomes based, being very custom and innovative in terms of how benefits are measured or how benefits are being calculated, providing financing options as opposed to just straight rebates or cash discounts, really trying to remove costs from the operations, both through scale, which we've seen in some of the acquisitions from the larger energy providers, and also adopting advanced technologies and really trying to scale the offering, both because of the benefits it provides to the customers, but also the providers, the flexibility providers out there, being able to really have an impact in the market. I'll jump over this because I just recognize we're sort of running up to the edge of time here. But focus on outcomes, encourage market innovation, leverage advanced technology, lean administration, making solutions accessible, and designing programs and offerings to be scalable. Really are some of the keys that we see and are deploying with some of our partners as well in jurisdictions, mostly in North America, but in a growing number of places here in Europe as well. I want to close out. So we did a piece of work about a year back now with TKI Urban Energy and Top Sector Energy, where we looked at a number of flexibility pilots, flexibility projects focused on the built environment, kind of coming back to what makes these successful. Scoping is vital, right? Don't try to do too much at the same time. So combining both product and system innovation is unadvisable. There's lots of issues around equipment stability and equipment uptime, that is going to create challenges, and so programs and pilots and offerings should be set up so that it doesn't interfere with the primary process. The diversity of the assets to be connected is often underestimated. Impact of malfunctions, and failing data, are typical challenges that folks have encountered as they're starting to scale or as they're starting to build the capabilities to really be able to scale up offerings into the market. And I think overall what we're seeing is that while there is a really positive outlook for flexibility overall, there are challenges with the business case, and I think part of that gets to, I'll talk about this on the next slide, but part of that gets to the thinness in some of the secondary markets that we see. Part of it gets to the sort of lack of a one large value pool for flexibility that can really form the basis for financing and for scale capital to be able to really to grow and deploy. And then within the European market, obviously the disconnect between, or the challenges with being able to recognize benefits across the separation points within the segments or across the segments is challenging and creates some barriers to growth in Europe that we don't necessarily see in places like Japan or the US. Some of the big differences between North America and Europe, obviously complex market structure here, more complex market structure here makes it more challenging to introduce ideas like non-wire solutions or create value across segment boundaries. The grid in Europe is still relatively overinvested. That's obviously changing as we continue down the energy transition path. But the markets for some of the secondary products, ancillary services, are thin, and so you see prices spike or prices drop fairly substantially as more flexibility enters the market, and the markets are not big to begin with, right? I think we obviously flexibility as an ancillary services product. Most ancillary services product markets are 1 to 2%, let's say, of overall demand in a market. So they're not huge markets to begin with. And then obviously when we look at the residential space, lower penetrations of electric heating and cooling really do place some limits on residential participation in some of these markets, although we are seeing some really interesting programs around hybrid heat pumps and some really interesting programs around markets that do have greater penetration of electric heating and cooling. And then across, and Philippa talked a bit about this, obviously UK, Dutch markets are sort of at the real active and growing. Belgium, an up and coming and growth market as well, but others are starting to catch up. Wouldn't be a good consultant if I didn't make our our selfless plug here. Guidehouse really is working with companies across the life cycle of flexibility programs and solutions, from strategy all the way through to operation, partnering with flexibility providers, partnering with the utilities, partnering with the energy suppliers to really find and extract the most value from flexibility resources across the energy system.
Benjamin, we are running out of time. So if you can finish within 1 minute.
Yep, I'm good. Let's take questions.
There is only one pool. What is the most attractive business model in the flexibility? To develop or own flexibility distributed energy resources, to provide or broker grid services, or to build transacting platforms and facilitate third parties access? So, as you see, Benjamin, the most attractive business model is to build transactive platform and facilitate third parties access. So, with this, we've been given 3 more minutes. So I will go very quick to the questions, and please go short in the answers. So, what are the types of energy storage you see with more potential in the future? And the second question is, what do you mean with the non-wire solutions? And you have 2 minutes to respond.
Okay, so great. So maybe just really start. I'll just kind of make a quick comment on the poll result. So we ran that question as part of a poll that we did with utility executives in North America, and so I actually wanted to test to see whether or not the outcomes were comparable with this group, and they were, with the sort of the platform piece being very much the sort of the optimal place to play, or the perception of where sort of the optimal place to play. So that's an interesting result. On storage, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the presenters before me mentioned, the costs and the economics continue to improve. We're seeing that really across the board at all scales of storage as well, from smaller distributed to large scale storage. It won't solve your, intraday or intra-seasonal sort of flexibility needs within a system, but certainly for shorter duration, flexibility needs, either behind the meter or directly connected to the system. We're going to see tremendous growth in that market over time. And I think, one of the sort of the challenges, if you will, for it in some of the European markets anyways, is, again, for storage, is you've got to string together 3 or 4 different value streams to really make the economics work, without a large sort of capacity payment mechanism, or without, substantial arbitrage between off-peak and on-peak prices in the wholesale markets or day-ahead markets. You're really trying to piece together a number of different revenue streams. And I think that's been probably the one of the biggest challenges for these types of for storage projects in general, as it relates to financeability, or it relates to sort of the security and certainty of revenue going forward. I think the other part of the question, Alicia, was around non-wire solutions. Yes. So again, it's sort of a North American term, but really just refers to the use of flexibility resources to defer grid investments, right? So the local flexibility auctions in the UK run by the DNOs are sort of the perfect example of contracting for, in that case, the DNOs contracting for third-party capacity on low voltage or high voltage substations to be able to defer the need to upgrade that station. In North America, those tend to be regulated investments. So utilities are winning concessions with regulators to have those types of investments in either storage or in flexibility resources downstream be included as part of their rate base or their operating capital. So, you know, they can earn regulated rates of return on those like they would with a transformer. You know, and so we're seeing certainly in more vertically integrated jurisdictions, more and more of those types of programs and solutions being adopted by utilities as alternatives to just building out traditional transmission and distribution infrastructure. And the same applies on the gas side as well, with sort of non-pipes alternatives.
Okay, thank you, Benjamin. So I would like to thank you, Benjamin, for his presentation and his contribution today. And I would like to close the webinar saying thank you to all the speakers for having illustrate us on how industrial commercial flexibility go better when the efforts are joined, when you have shared revenues, when you consider dynamic prices, when you take into account that there are different business models, also that you have to take the offerings, make it effective, and also that you have to plan how to unlock the full flexibility scope. And with that, I would like to thank you, the organizers. I would like to thank you, FLEXCON, for today, and all the speakers, and for sure all the attendees that stay through and to the end of the webinar. Thank you and goodbye. Have a good day. Bye.